I could barely feel my legs as I stepped out of my car, my body aching from 12 straight hours of patching people up, running from one patient to another, barely stopping to breathe. The hospital was chaos today. A mix of emergency cases, overbooked schedules, and the ever-present hum of stress that settled into my bones like an old, unwelcome tenant. But none of that compared to what I felt when I stepped onto my front porch. The second I reached for the door handle, something fell off. It wasn't the usual comfort of coming home after a long shift. The quiet space where I could finally let my guard down. No. Tonight, my house felt hostile. And then I saw the blinking red light. The security camera. The same one I had installed. The one that was supposed to keep intruders out. Was staring at me like an eye that had turned against its owner. A second later, my mother-in-law's voice crackled through the doorbell speaker, dripping with smug satisfaction. "Your wife doesn't want you here anymore." Victoria's voice slithered into my ears like nails on a chalkboard. "I have changed the locks. Go find somewhere else to live." I froze, not in shock. I had been expecting this for months, not in fear. I knew exactly who I was dealing with. No. I paused because I wanted to save her this moment. Because Victoria had just stepped into my trap and she had no idea. I exhaled, slowly rolling my shoulders back, forcing the exhaustion out of my voice. Then, with a calmness that I knew would infuriate her, I smiled at the camera and said, "Okay, Victoria." I could almost hear her seething through the speaker. She wanted an explosion, a reaction. She wanted me to bang on the door like some desperate, abandoned fool while she watched from the other side, reeling in my misery. But I wasn't about to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I let my gaze drift to the 3 cardboard boxes stacked neatly beside the door, my belongings shoved out like I was some unwanted guest. My clothes were SP in out of the top one, a wrinkled mess. My work shoes, the ones I left by the door every night, were tossed in without care, one of them missing a shoelace. Sloppy work, Victoria. I took a step closer and lightly kicked the side of the top box. A few items tumbled out, a framed picture of me and Olivia on our wedding day. The glass cracked right across my face, a cheap, deliberate move. Victoria wasn't just trying to kick me out, she was trying to erase me from my own life. And yet she had no idea who she was dealing with. I leaned against the porch, railing crossing my arms, my gaze locked on the camera. "Where's Olivia?" I asked, keeping my tone white. Almost amused, Victoria's scoff crackled through the speaker, followed by the faint sound of her nails tapping against something, probably the armrest of my couch. Inside my house, she's staying with us while she processes everything she purred, stretching out the words like she was talking to a child. She finally saw the truth. "Lucas, this house belongs to our family, and you were never good enough for her or for it." Oh, there it was. Victoria had always loved playing queen of the castle, treating Olivia like her little princess who needed to be saved from my supposed unworthiness. From the very beginning, she had tried to break us. It started small snide comments at family gatherings, backhanded compliments, little tests to see if I would snap. "Oh, you're a doctor. That's impressive, I suppose. But really, how will Olivia ever get the attention she deserves when you work such long hours? You should have seen her old boyfriends, Lucas. Such gentlemen, so devoted. It's a shame she had to settle." And then, when those little digs didn't work, she got bolder. She started planting seeds of doubt in Olivia's mind, twisting every small issue into a catastrophe. "Lucas works too much. Don't you ever feel lonely? A man should prioritize his wife over his career. Sweetheart, don't you think? Are you really happy, Olivia? Or do you just think you are?" I knew what she was doing, and I played along, Because if Victoria was predictable, she was also controllable. And tonight, she had just proven me right. I took out my phone, tapping the screen casually. "I'll just call Olivia," I said. "Oh, Lucas?" Victoria sighed dramatically. "She's changed her number. Fresh start and all that." I chuckled. That was bold, even for her fresh start. I echoed, tilting my head. "You sure about that?" There was a pause, just a flicker of hesitation. Good. She didn't expect me to be this calm. She expected rage, chaos, a messy confrontation. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us, letting her feel the weight of my patience. Then I spoke again, my voice measured. "Victoria, this house, it's mine." It was never in Olivia's name, not even for a second's silence. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, the realization sinking in. She thought she had won. She thought she had just removed me from my own home, humiliated me, cast me aside like some disposable mistake. But instead, she had just trapped herself. I took another slow step forward, adjusting my grip on my phone. "Would you like me to have my lawyer explain it to you?" I asked already, scrolling through my contacts. "Or would you rather I call the police first?" Another beat of silence. Then, for the first time, uncertainty crept into Victoria's voice. "David told me this was his house," she said. And for the first time, she didn't sound sure of herself. I smiled. "Oh, Victoria," I murmured. "You really should have checked the D before pulling this stunt." And with that, I turned, walked back to my car, and dialed my next call. It was time to watch Victoria's empire crumble. I sat in my car, fingers drumming lightly against the steering wheel, watching my own house through the windshield. The porch light flickered above the front door. See Cass in long shadows across the boxes of my belongings. A cruel little touch. Really, Victoria wanted this to feel like an eviction. Wanted me to see my life tossed outside like yesterday's garbage. She thought she had already won. I sighed, rolling my shoulders, the exhaustion from my hospital shift, finally settling in now that the adrenaline was fading. I was tired, but not defeated. No, this was just the beginning. Victoria had played her move. Now it was my turn. I unlocked my phone and scrolled down to Natalie's number. She answered on the second ring. "Tell me, it's finally happening." I smirked. "It's happening." A pause, then a delighted chuckle, and she changed the locks, tossed my stuff outside, and tried to claim Olivia wanted me gone. A low whistle. "Oh, Victoria. She really thought she could just throw you out of your own house." "Apparently." Natalie sighed, but I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "Lucas, I told you this day would come. You were right to put everything in your name." She thought Olivia was on the deed. That woman really doesn't believe in reading fine print, does she? I chuckled, but it was empty. She also said Olivia changed her number. That made Natalie pause. "You think Olivia actually went along with this?" No, the answer was immediate. Whatever had happened between us recently, whatever doubts Victoria had tried to poison, Olivia with. I knew my wife. Olivia wasn't cruel. She wasn't heartless. She wouldn't just disappear on me like that unless she wasn't the one making the decisions. Natalie must have heard the shift in my tone. "You think Victoria did something to her?" "I don't know," I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck. "But something doesn't add up. Olivia would have talked to me first. She wouldn't just vanish." A pause, then want me to send the police. I considered it. It would be the logical next step document. Victoria is a legal eviction attempt. Have officers escort me inside and get everything on record? But something about this felt bigger. No, This wasn't just about getting my house back. This was about getting to the truth. Not yet, I told her. Let me try something first. Just don't get yourself arrested or killed. If I do, you'll get a fantastic lawsuit out of it. Natalie snorted. If you die, I'm getting a raise. First, I ended the call, my smirk fading as I scrolled to the next number on my list, Ryan. I hesitated for only a second before hitting call. He picked up almost immediately. Lucas. Yeah, a breath of relief, man. I've been trying to reach Olivia all day. Check not answering, and Mom's acting weird. I sat up straighter. What do you mean? I called her earlier, asked where Olivia was. She just gave me some vague crap about letting her rest and giving her space. That wasn't good. Ryan continued. Then I asked about you, and she told me, get this, that you left on your own figures. A pause. Then, Lucas, what's going on? I exhaled. She locked me out of my own house? What changed the locks? Dump my stuff outside, told me. Olivia wanted me gone. Silence. Then, Mom's lying. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I know Ryan cursed under his breath. You think Olivia's okay? That's what I need to find out. Another pause, then want me to meet you. I glanced at my house one last time at the still blinking security camera, recording every second of this mess Victoria had created. Yeah, I said. Meet me at your parents' house and bring your key. I parked 2 houses down from Victoria's mansion, killing the engine and leaning back against the headrest. The Williams estate was as pristine as ever, a cold, polished illusion of a home. Every light was on, casting a warm glow against the massive windows. It looked normal, but nothing about. Tonight was normal. A tap on my window made me jolt Ryan. He slid into the past passenger seat, his jaw tight. This is insane. Yeah. He let out a shaky breath. If Olivia's in there, we're getting her out. Agreed. Ryan turned. The key in the front door, and we stepped into the silent house. Everything. I pushed the door open, and there she was, sitting in one of the leather chairs, wrapped in a thick blanket, her head lying slightly to the side. Her eyes were glassy. Something was very, very wrong. I rushed to her, crouching down, cupping her face. Liv? Look at me. What's wrong? She blinked slowly. I don't know. Ryan appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Jesus Christ. Olivia leaned against me, struggling to keep her eyes open. I feel weird. My blood turned to ice. She was drugged, and I knew exactly who was responsible. Victoria had done something, and now I had all the proof I needed. I pulled out my phone. Ryan, call an ambulance, Lucas. What, call the damn ambulance? I wasn't playing any more. Victoria thought she could take everything from me. She thought she could control Olivia. She thought she had won. She had no idea what was coming next. I sat on the edge of the couch, Olivia's limp form resting against me, her breathing slow and uneven. My hands clenched into fists as I listened to the seconds tick away on the grandfather clock across the room. Ryan stood near the door, his face pale, phone pressed to his ear. Yes, we need an ambulance. Possible overdose or intoxication. She's barely responsive. Overdose. The word made my blood run cold. I brushed Olivia's damp hair away from her forehead, whispering her name, trying to get her to focus on me. Her lips parted slightly, her brow furrowing, but her gaze remained unfocused. Ryan hung up. They're on their way. I exhaled sharply, nodding. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Victoria had done this, and I needed proof. My gaze flicked toward the desk in the corner of the study. Victoria had always treated this house like her throne in this room. This was her war room. If she had been plotting something, the evidence was here. I carefully eased Olivia onto the couch and stood. Stay with her. I told Ryan I'm going to find out exactly what that woman did. Ryan hesitated, then nodded. Make it fast. I moved to the desk, my fingers brushing across its polished surface. It was spotless, too clean. Victoria never left anything out in the open, but I knew her well enough to know she wasn't half as clever as she thought she was. I tugged the drawers open one by one. Empty bills. Useless. Then bingo, a small velvet pouch hidden beneath a stack of documents. I grabbed it and pulled the string loose. A bottle of prescription pills tumbled into my palm. My stomach twisted. I turned the label toward the dim light. Low Rip, Pam. A powerful anti-anxiety medication at high enough doses. It's sedated. It can confuse. It made people compliant. Olivia had been drinking tea every night, hadn't she? I could still hear Victoria's voice. You work too hard, sweetheart. You need to relax. Let me make you some tea. It wasn't relaxation. It was control. The rage boiled so fast, I had to take a deep breath to keep my vision from blurring. I turned to Ryan, who was staring at me, his jaw tight. What the hell is that? I tossed the bottle onto the desk. Victoria's been drugging Olivia. Ryan ped. That's Jesus. That's why she's been so out of it lately. I thought she was just overwhelmed, but he trailed off his expression. Hardening Sheck been poisoning her. I nodded grimly, and now we have proof. The door creaked open, and for a second my heart slammed against my ribs, expecting Victoria. Instead, Mark stepped in, his eyes darting between us. The paramedics are pulling in. He said we need to move. I grabbed the bottle of pills and shoved them into my pocket. Let's go. The next 20 minutes were a blur of flashing lights, hushed medical jargon, and me gripping Olivia's hand as the paramedics checked her vitals. Her heart rate was slow, not dangerous, but concerning. One of the medics, a woman in her late 50s, gave me a pointed look. She's been on something. Any idea what? I pulled the bottle of low razorpan from my pocket and held it out to her. This. I think it's been slipped into her food or drinks for weeks. Her brows shot up, but she took the bottle without question. Wake, do a full talk screen at the hospital. But if you're right, someone's been drugging her consistently. Someone we both knew exactly who. Ryan and I followed behind as they wheeled Olivia out of the study and toward the ambulance. I was just about to step into the back when a voice cut through the night air. What the hell is going on, Victoria? She stood on the front steps, wrapped in a silk robe. Her expression twisted into something between rage and faux concern. Her eyes flicked to Olivia. Then to me. I didn't say a word. I just let her. Watch as the ambulance doors shut and the sirens wailed to life. Ryan stepped up beside Mew Dun Mom. Victoria's face barely twitched, but I saw it, that tiny flicker of uncertainty. I smiled. She knew she had lost. She just didn't know how badly. Yet, at the hospital, I paced the waiting room while Ryan called our lawyer. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the antiseptic smell clung to my skin. But I barely noticed my mind was spinning. Olivia had been drugged for weeks. Victoria had done it on purpose. She had planned this step by step, breaking Olivia down until she didn't know which way was up, making her easier to manipulate. But I had stopped it. And now I was going to make sure Victoria never got another chance. The door swung open, and Natalie stormed in, eyes blazing. Tell me everything I did. I told her about the eviction stunt, the security camera footage, the bottle of pills. Natalie's lips pressed into a thin line. She's going to prison. I exhaled. That's the goal. Do you have proof of Olivia being drugged? I nodded toward the hallway. They're running tests now. Natalie tapped her phone. As soon as we have results, we move. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his leg bouncing. This is insane. I knew Mom was controlling, but he shook his head. She actually poisoned her own daughter. I sat back in my chair folding my arms. She thought she'd get away with it. And now Natalie asked. I smiled. Now she won't. An hour later, the doctor came out, clipboard in hand. She's stable. He said you were right about the medication. The levels in her system indicate long-term exposure. We'll keep her for observation, but she'll recover. Relief flooded me. Then, the doctor's next word solidified everything. Do you want to press charges? I stood. Yes. Natalie didn't even wait. She pulled out her phone, already dialing time to end this. Victoria thought she was untouchable. She thought a fluorescent light flickered in the corner, casting an annoying strobe across the linoleum floor. I sat in a stiff plastic chair, my elbows resting on my knees. Fingers laced together as I tried to stay calm. Olivia was stable, that's what the doctor said. She'd been drugged long-term exposure to lorazepam, but she would recover with time. That should have brought me relief. It didn't, because Olivia had been missing from her own life for weeks, trapped under Victoria's thumb. And the one question that gnawed at me wasn't what Victoria had done. It was why I glanced up as Ryan paced in front of me, his hands clenched at his sides. She's not picking up. He lowered his phone, scowling. Mom knows she's panicking. I exhaled through my nose. She should be. Ryan dropped into the chair next to me, rubbing his temples. I don't get it. Mom's always been controlling, yeah. But this drugging Olivia, kicking you out, what's her end game? I had a theory, a dark, ugly one. But before I could say it out loud, Natalie walked in, her expression tight. She didn't bother with pleasantries. Victoria's lawyer just contacted me. My eyebrows shot up. She lawyered up already. Natalie crossed her arms. She knows the police will be knocking soon. She's trying to get ahead of it. I tilted my head. And what's the spin? Natalie's lips curled in disgust. She's claiming Olivia's decision to separate from you was entirely her own, that Olivia moved out willingly, that you're just making accusations out of bitterness and can't accept the divorce. Ryan snorted divorce. Olivia never filed for divorce. Natalie nodded exactly, which means Victoria's trying to cover her tracks. She's setting up a defense in case this goes to trial. My jaw tightened, which means she's not planning to run. She thinks she can still win. Ryan exhaled sharply. Mom doesn't back down unless she's cornered. Then it's time to corner her. I stood, my exhaustion momentarily forgotten. We need to know exactly what she's been telling Olivia. We need her medical records, her phone logs, and I need to know what the hell she's been planning behind the scenes. Natalie nodded. I'll get subpoenas for Olivia's medical records and phone records, but we need more leverage. Ryan straightened Mom's office. I turned to him what he swallowed. She keeps everything in her home office. Documents, files, everything. She doesn't trust. Digital records. If there's proof she's been manipulating Olivia, it's in there. My pulse kicked up. You can get us in. Ryan hesitated. Then he nodded. Yeah, I know where she keeps the spare key. I grabbed my jacket, then let go. The Williams estate sat at the end of a long driveway, lined with towering oak trees that swayed under the night sky. The house itself was a fortress of wealth. Pristine, polished, with floor to ceiling windows that looked more like a high-end hotel than a home. But inside those walls was a cage. A cage Olivia had been trapped in for weeks. Ryan parked 2 houses down, killing the engine. We sat in silence for a moment, staring at the darkened windows. She's probably still at the hospital, Ryan muttered, but if she left, we have to be fast. I nodded. Where's the key? Ryan leaned over, yanking open the glove compartment. He pulled out a small silver key and handed it to me behind the second potted plant on the porch. I smirked. She's predictable. Ryan huffed. She thinks no one in the family would ever cross her. That's why she doesn't hide things better. That arrogance is going to bury her. We got out of the car, moving quickly across the lawn. The porch was empty, the house eerily silent. I grabbed the key from behind the planter and slid it into the lock. The door clicked open. We stepped inside. Victoria's office was on the 2nd floor, just past the grand staircase. The door was locked. Ryan pulled a second key from his pocket. She changed the locks on the house, but not the office idiot. I watched as he turned the key and pushed the door open. The room was, exactly as I remembered, an altar to control dark mahogany shelves. The walls filled with binders, paperwork, and neatly labeled folders. A massive oak desk sat in the center, paper stacked in Yoon Irving precise piles. Ryan flipped on the desk lamp, casting long shadows across the room. We need to be fast, he muttered. I didn't waste time. I moved to the desk, flipping through the papers. Most were financial records, house expenses, legal documents. Nothing immediately useful. Then I found a locked drawer. Ryan. He turned what I need something to break this open. Ryan glanced around, then grabbed a heavy brass letter opener from a nearby shelf. Try this. I wedged it between the lock and the drawer frame, twisting hard. The lock snapped with a sharp crack. The drawer slid open. Inside was a manila folder labeled Olivia Personal. I grabbed it and flipped it open, and there it was, proof of everything. Handwritten notes in Victoria's elegant, practiced cursive spoke to Dr. Avery up dosage slightly, Olivia. More compliant now? Encourage separation talk. Reinforced idea that Lucas is neglectful. Olivia signed power of attorney papers today. Did not question it. I stopped breathing. I turned to Ryan, the words barely leaving my mouth. She got Olivia to sign power of attorney. Over to her. Ryan's eyes widened. What I flipped to the next page attached was a signed legal document giving Victoria control over Olivia's finances and medical decisions. My hands clenched around the paper. She was planning something bigger than just kicking me out. She wanted full control over Olivia, and she nearly got it. Ryan was pale. We need to get out of here now. I nodded, stuffing the papers into my jacket, turned for the door and came face to face with Victoria. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her eyes blazing. I was wondering when you'd show up. I exhaled, slowly slipping the folder deeper into my pocket. You should have left when you had the chance, Victoria. She smirked, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. I have nothing to hide, really. I pulled the folder halfway out of my pocket, just enough for her to see it, because this looks an awful lot like fraud and medical coercion. Her face hailed just slightly. You have no right to be in my home, and you have no right to be in Olivia's life. Ryan stepped forward. Mom, you're done. You drugged Olivia. You tried to erase Lucas, and now we have proof for the first time. She faltered. I smiled. You always thought you were the smartest person in the room, didn't you? But you made one mistake. Her voice was sharp. "And what's that?" I took a step closer, lowering my voice to a deadly whisper. "You underestimated me." Her lips parted slightly, her throat bobbing as she swallowed. I turned to Ryan Leeton-Go. We walked past her without another word, because the next time I saw Victoria, she'd be in handcuffs. I didn't look back as Ryan and I walked out of Victoria's house. There was no need I knew what I would see Victoria standing in her own doorway. Frozen in place, her lips pressed into a tight line, her mind spinning as she tried to find a way out of the trap she had set for herself. She had spent years perfecting the art of control, twisting, manipulating, orchestrating situations to her advantage, treating the people in her life like pieces on a chessboard. But this time, she had lost. Ryan didn't speak. As we climbed into the car, he started the engine, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. His jaw clenched like he was trying to hold back an explosion of emotions. I pulled the folder of evidence from my jacket and flipped through the papers again, my fingers tracing over Victoria's meticulous handwriting. In every note, every calculated lie, every deliberate step she had taken to break Olivia down and mold her into something weaker, something more controllable. Encourage separation, talk, reinforced idea that Lucas is neglectful. Olivia signed. Power of attorney papers today, did not question it, increased dosage slightly enough to keep her compliant. I exhaled sharply, my fingers tightening around the paper. Ryan's voice finally broke the silence. I knew she was trolling Lucas, but this drugging her own daughter. He shook his head, his voice laced with disbelief. What the hell was her endgame? I looked out the window, the city lights flickering past in the distance. She wanted Olivia to be dependent on her to believe she couldn't function without her. Ryan scoffed why she already controlled everything Olivia did. Why go this far? I glanced down at the power of attorney document, and then it clicked. My breath stilled. It wasn't just about control. It was about money. Victoria hadn't just been manipulating Olivia. She had been preparing to take everything Olivia owned, including my house. My fingers curled around the paper, my mind racing. She wasn't just trying to break us up. She was trying to make Olivia legally dependent on her so she could take full financial control. Ryan's eyes widened as he connected the dots. Wait. You think she was planning to steal everything? Olivia has, absolutely, Ryan swore under his breath. G-ring, the wheel tighter, and the worst part, Olivia wouldn't have even known, not in the state. Mom put her in. I turned to him, my voice steady. That's why she kicked me out. She thought she was in the clear. She thought she had won. Ryan exhaled sharply, rubbing his hand over his face. What do we do now? I glanced at my phone. First, we make sure Olivia is safe. Then we make sure Victoria never gets near her again. Victoria's web of lies. By the time we arrived at the hospital, Olivia had been moved to a private room. The nurses had cleaned her up, given her fluids, and monitored her vitals. The color had returned to her cheeks, but her expression was still distant, like she was trying to piece together where she was. I sat beside her, taking her hand gently. Olivia, I whispered. Her eyelids fluttered open, and for a second she just blinked at me, confusion flickering across her face. Then recognition dawned, and she let out a small, shaky breath. Lucas, her voice was hoarse. What happened? I squeezed her hand. You were drugged, Liv, for weeks. It was Victoria. Her brows furrowed, her lips parting slightly like she wanted to protest. Then I saw the exact moment the memories hit her. The way she stiffened, the way her fingers clenched against the sheets. Her breath quickened the tea. She whispered, her eyes wide. She always made me tea. I nodded. She laced it with low resip, Pam. A small broken sound escaped her lips. I thought I was just exhausted, that maybe I was overthinking things. She kept telling me. I was imagining it. I exhaled, leaning closer. She made you believe you were losing control, LIF, because she needed you to doubt yourself. Tears welled in her eyes and knew you were right in front of me, and I cued her face gently. This isn't your fault. She let out a shaky breath, her fingers tightening around mine. I let her get in my head. No, I corrected. She forced her way in. A tear slipped down her cheek, and I wiped it away with my thumb. She wanted to separate us, Olivia, because she needed full control over you. Her gaze flicked to the papers on the table, and when she spotted her own signature on the power of attorney document, her entire body tensed. Oh my God, her breath hitched. I don't remember signing that. She made sure you wouldn't. Her fingers trembled as she touched the document, her gaze flicking back to me. She tried to take everything from me. I nodded, but she failed. She swallowed hard, her eyes shining with a mix of grief and fury. Then softly, I want to press charges. I nodded, reaching for my phone, already in motion, the breaking point. Victoria was arrested the next morning. I wasn't there when they took her, but Ryan was. He watched his 2 officers knocked on the door as she answered in her silk robe, smiling as if nothing was wrong. And then they read her the charges: front coercion, unlawful drugging, attempted financial exploitation. Ryan told me later that her smile didn't falter until they pulled out the evidence, the signed documents, the medical records, the security footage from my house. Every smug word she had uttered through the income, saved and documented. Her face went pale. She tried to spin it. Of course, she tried to say she was protecting Olivia from me, that Olivia was fragile and needed guidance, that she hadn't done anything wrong. But none of it mattered. Because the moment Olivia herself gave a statement, the moment she told the officers that she had no memory of signing the documents Victoria had used to try to seize control of her life, it was over. Victoria was let out of her house in handcuffs. Ryan told me she didn't say a word. For the first time in her life, Victoria Williams had lost control, and I made sure she would never get it back. Moving forward, the weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings, therapy, and healing. Olivia stayed in the hospital for a few days, slowly detoxing. From the medication Victoria had slipped into her system. She had moments of guilt, moments where she wondered how she hadn't seen it. Sooner I reminded her, Victoria was a master manipulator, and even the strongest people fall prey to someone like her. We sold the house, the one she had tried to steal from me. We moved somewhere new, somewhere quiet, somewhere Victoria would never be able to touch. And as Olivia and I sat on our new porch one evening watching the sun dipped below the horizon, she reached for my hand. She almost destroyed us. She murmured, but she didn't. I squeezed her fingers. No, she didn't, and she never would again. The courtroom smelled like varnished wood and old coffee, the kind of place where people either fought for justice or tried to worm their way out of the consequences they had spent a lifetime avoiding. Victoria sat at the defendant table, perfectly composed, her sharp features set in a mask of serene confidence. But I knew the truth. She wasn't calm. She was cornered. I leaned back in my chair watching her. It had been weeks since her arrest, weeks since her empire of control had crumbled beneath her feet. Yet she still carried herself like she was untouchable, as if none of this mattered, as if the judge and the lawyers and the witnesses were just minor inconveniences in her perfect little world. Her lawyer, a man whose suit probably cost more than my car, was whispering something in her ear. She nodded slightly, but I could see it, the tiny twitch in her fingers as they clenched against the table. She was nervous. Good. I glanced to my left, where Olivia sat beside me, her hands folded in her lap. She looked stronger today, less fragile, less like the woman Victoria had tried to break, and more like the woman I had fallen in love with. Determined, resilient, fierce. She caught me watching and gave me a small, steady nod. We were ready. The baith called the court to order, and the judge entered her robe, billowing behind her as she took her seat. Then it began. The evidence unfolds. The prosecutor stood first, his voice sharp and precise. Your Honor, today we will present evidence that the defendant, Victoria Williams, knowingly and deliberately drugged her own daughter in order to manipulate her in signing over financial control. We will show that she illegally changed the locks on the home of Lucas Carter, attempting to force him out under false pretenses. And finally, we will demonstrate how she engaged in psychological coercion, fabricating a false narrative of marital separation to further her own financial gain. Victoria didn't flinch, but I saw the flicker of tension in her jaw. Her lawyer stood next, smoothing down his tie. Your Honor, the defense will show that Mrs. Williams was merely acting in her daughter's best interest, that Olivia Carter willingly signed the documents in question, and that Mr. Carter is attempting to paint an innocent mother as a villain. Due to personal grievances, I nearly laughed. Victoria had always been good at spinning lies. But this was her sloppiest work. Yet the first witness was called the doctor who had treated Olivia. He was calm, methodical, precise. As he walked through the toxicology report, the patient exhibited signs of long-term benzodiazepine exposure based on blood work results. The medication was administered in small but frequent doses, likely over the course of several months. Given the reported symptoms, lethargy, confusion, memory, impairment, it is unlikely the patient was aware she was being drugged. Victoria's lawyer stood doctor. Is there any way to prove, beyond a doubt, that my client was responsible for administering these medications? The doctor barely blinked. Only one person had direct, unsupervised access to Olivia Carter's food and drink during the period in question, and that was her mother, Victoria Williams. The lawyer pursed his lips and sat down. Victoria's mask didn't crack, but her fingers tightened. Olivia takes the stand. When Olivia's name was called, my heart clenched. She had been dreading this moment, facing her mother telling the truth in front of a courtroom full of people. But she stood. She walked to the stand, and when she was sworn in, she lifted her chin and spoke. My mother has controlled my life for as long as I can remember. She began, her voice steady. She always knew exactly how to make me doubt myself, how to make me feel like I needed her. And when I married Lucas, she hated that she was losing her grip on me. I watched as Victoria kept her expression blank. But she wasn't fooling anyone at first. It was just words. Olivia continued telling me Lucas was too busy for me, that he didn't really love me, that I deserved someone who paid more attention. She planted those thoughts in my head until I didn't know what was real anymore. She exhaled, and then she started giving me tea. Every night she told me it would help me relax, that it would help me sleep. But the more I drank it, the more confused I became. The more I felt like I was floating through my own life, disconnected from everything, and through all of it. She kept telling me that Lucas was the problem, that I needed to leave him. She swallowed hard. I didn't know I was being drugged, but I know now. And I know that she did it on purpose. The prosecutor gave her a moment before asking, "Did you willingly sign over power of attorney to your mother?" Olivia shook her head, her expression darkening. "No, I don't even remember signing it." That was it. That was the moment. The moment Victoria realized she had no way out. The moment the final thread of her carefully woven web snapped. Her own daughter had just testified against her, and the whole courtroom saw it. The verdict. Victoria's lawyer tried to fight back. He questioned Olivia's memory. He argued that the evidence was circumstantial. He tried to make me out to be some vindictive whoosby trying to punish his mother-in-law. But it was useless. The medical records, the documents she forged, the security footage of her changing the locks on my house. It was all there. And when the jury returned, it took them less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Victoria's mask finally cracked, her lips parted slightly, her eyes darting to the judge as if she could somehow convince them to change their minds. But she couldn't. The judge's voice was firm. "Victoria Williams, you have been found guilty of multiple counts of fraud, unlawful administration of a controlled substance, and coercion. You are hereby sentenced to 15 years in federal prison." 15 years. Victoria let out a slow breath, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. But there was nothing she could do. The BFF stepped forward, handcuffs glinting under the courtroom lights. And for the first time in her life, Victoria had no control aftermath. I didn't watch as they led her away. I didn't need to. Instead, I turned to Olivia. She looked tired but relieved, like a weight she had carried for her entire life had finally been lifted. She turned to me, exhaling softly. "It's over." I nodded. "Yeah, it is." We walked out of the courthouse together, hand in hand. Victoria had spent years trying to control us, manipulate us, tear us apart. But in the end, she had only proven how strong we were together. And as we stepped into the sunlight, Olivia squeezed my hand. The day after the verdict, I woke up in a house that finally felt like a home again. It settled in the cracks of a person's mind, whispered doubts, even when the voice that planted them was locked away behind bars. And right now, Olivia was still listening to those whispers. I found her on the back porch, sitting on the wooden swing we had built together years ago. Her hands curled around a steaming cup of coffee. Her gaze was distant, watching the sunrise, but I could tell she wasn't really seeing it. I sat beside her. She didn't look at me right away, just let out of a quiet sigh. I don't know what to do now. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch between us. You don't have to know. She swallowed. I feel empty. I should be happy. Right, check gone. She can't control me anymore, but it doesn't feel real. It feels like she exhaled, shaking her head. Like she's still there in my head, like she's still pulling the strings, even from a prison cell. I reached out, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. That's what she wanted. She didn't just want control over your life. She wanted control over your mind. Her fingers tightened around her mug, and she got it for a while. I agreed, but not anymore. She finally turned to look at me. Her blue eyes clouded with something raw. How do I move on from this, Lucas? How do I stop feeling like I was just some puppet in her hands? I thought about that for a moment. Thought about everything Victoria had done to her. Then she stared at me for a long moment. Then finally, she exhaled. Okay, cutting the final strings. Over the next few weeks, Olivia took small steps toward reclaiming her life. It started with simple things, making choices without second-guessing whether Victoria would approve. She picked out new furniture for our bedroom, replacing the old set Victoria had chosen for us years ago. She started cooking again meals she liked, not the ones her mother had insisted were proper. Even from behind bars, she was still trying to reach her. "You don't have to read it," I said carefully. "She doesn't get a say anymore." Olivia hesitated. Then, without another word, she stood, walked to the fireplace, and tossed the envelope into the flames. I watched as the paper curled, darkening, turning to ash. She watched too, and when it was nothing but embers, she turned back to me. "I don't need to hear what she has to say." I smiled. "No, you don't." For the first time, she smiled back a home without ghosts. A month after Victoria's sentencing, Olivia came to me with an idea. "I want to sell the house," she said one evening, curled up beside me on the couch, the one we lived in before. I blinked. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "It's not ours anymore, Lucas. It never really was. It was a battlefield, a place where she fought to keep us apart. And I don't want to live on a battlefield." I understood. So we sold it. We bought a small farm outside the city, somewhere quiet, somewhere untouched by Victoria's influence. It wasn't just a fresh start. It was ours. One night after we had moved in, Olivia and I sat on the porch watching the sky darken. The stars blinking into existence one by one. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you think she's still angry?" I smirked. "Oh, sheck furious." She chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Good, then." After a long pause, she whispered, "I feel free." I wrapped an arm around her, pressing a kiss to her hair. "You are because Victoria had spent years trying to keep Olivia caged, and in the end, she had only taught her how to break free the unopened letters." Every few months, another letter from Victoria arrived. We never read them. Instead, Olivia kept them in a file in Natalie's office. A precaution, because if there was one thing we had learned, it was that Victoria never truly gave up. But she was powerless. Now, just a woman in a cell scribbling words that would never be read. Her influence was gone, her control was gone, and we had won the final lesson. One evening, as we watched the sunset, Olivia turned to me. Her expression thoughtful, "Do you think? People like her ever change?" I thought about that for a long moment. Then I shook my head. "No, I think they just get better at pretending." She nodded, looking out at the horizon. "I used to think she loved me." I swallowed hard. Maybe in her own way she did. But Ray, love doesn't look like that. She reached for my hand. "No, it doesn't." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky shift from orange to purple. Victoria had spent years trying to tear us apart. She had thought she was the one with all the power. But in the end, she had only proven how strong we were together, and that was the real victory. The first morning in our new home, I woke up to the sound of birds instead of the distant hum of city traffic. The air smelled like fresh soil and morning dew. A welcome change from the clinical sterility of the hospital and the suffocating tension of our old life. For the first time in a long time, I woke up without dread, sitting on my chest beside me. Olivia was still asleep, her face peaceful, her breathing, even no shadows under her eyes, no restlessness. I let myself take that in. She was healing. We both were. But the scars Victoria had left, they would take longer to fade. I carefully slid out of bed, making my way downstairs. Our new kitchen was still half unpacked, boxes stacked against the counters, dishes in random places. But it didn't matter. It was ours. Not something Victoria had chosen, not something she had claimed, just ours. I brewed coffee, staring out the window at the wide open land stretching beyond our backyard. Acres of quiet, untouched peace. A place where we could rebuild. I was halfway through my first sip when Olivia padded into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. "You're up early," she mumbled, wrapping herself in one of my sweatshirts. I smirked. Slept too well. I guess she hummed. Stepping closer and stealing my coffee. "This place doesn't feel real." Yet she admitted. After a moment, I wrapped an arm around her waist, resting my chin on top of her head. "It will," she sighed, leaning into me. "Do you think we'll ever stop looking over our shoulders?" I was quiet for a moment then. "Truthfully, I don't know. But I know we don't have to anymore." She didn't reply, but her fingers tightened around the coffee mug. We stood there like that for a while, breathing, existing free. The final battle with the past. The letter still came. Once every few months, an envelope would arrive, always from the same sender, Victoria. She hadn't accepted her fate. Of course she hadn't. Even behind bars, she was still trying to reach for the strings she had once pulled so easily. The first letter had been a plea for forgiveness. The second, anger, blame, justification. By the third, she had resorted to thinly veiled threats, warning Olivia that she would one day regret turning her back on her mother. Olivia didn't read them, but she didn't throw them away either. They were kept in a file in Natalie's office, unopened. A precaution, a reminder, a symbol of everything Victoria had lost. But it wasn't until one particular letter arrived, 6 months after Victoria's sentencing, that I saw something shift in Olivia. We had been sitting on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, when she turned to me, an unread letter resting in her lap. "Do you think Sheck ever stop?" I didn't need. For me, the letter that ended everything, Olivia wrote it that night. Not long, not emotional, not some grand declaration of closure, just the truth. She let me read it before she sealed the envelope. "Victoria, you always told me that I needed you, that I was nothing without you. You convinced me that I was weak, that I couldn't think for myself, that I would fall apart if I ever let go of your influence. But you were wrong. I am stronger than you ever gave me credit for, and I will never let you control me again. I will not read another letter from you. I will not waste another second thinking about the person you try to turn me into. You do not exist in my life anymore. Goodbye, Olivia." She sent it the next morning. We never received another letter. Not one. Victoria had lost, and she finally knew it. The future we chose. A year passed, a year without manipulation, without mind games, without fear. And slowly, we built something new. Olivia started painting again, something she had once loved. Before Victoria convinced her it was a waste of time, I took up carpentry, something I had always wanted to learn but never had time for. We built furniture together, filled our home with things we had created with our own hands. No traces of the past, only new beginnings. One afternoon, as Olivia worked on a canvas by the window, I watched her in silence. She was glowing alive, not the hollowed-out version of herself that Victoria had tried to create. I walked over, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. She looked up, smiling when I smirked. "Nothing just like seeing you happy." Her eyes softened. "I am happy, Lucas." I brushed my fingers against her cheek. "Good. Because happiness. That was the one thing Victoria never wanted us to have. And now it was ours, the final lesson. One night we sat outside the sky, stretching endlessly above us, stars scattered like tiny shards of light. Olivia rested her head against my shoulder. Do you think she ever loved me? I didn't answer right away, because it was a complicated question. Victoria had been controlling, manipulative, cruel. But had she loved Olivia? Maybe in her own way. But love real. Love didn't look like that. I kissed Olivia's forehead. Maybe she thought she did. But it wasn't. Love? Not the kind that matters. She nodded, exhaling. I don't think about her as much anymore. That's a good thing. She was quiet for a long moment. Then I think I finally believe it, Lucas. I turned to her. Believe what she smiled softly, that I'm free. I squeezed her hand. My heart full you are, and that was the ultimate victory. Victoria had tried to break her, tried to erase me, tried to win. But in the end, she had done the opposite. She had proven how strong Olivia truly was. And as we sat there in the home we had built together, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. We had survived, and we had one together.